Welcome one and all to Object Podcast, a game dev show featuring members of the game maker community. My name is Lazy Eye, and as always, I am joined by my co-hosts Maseta and Seabass, and we are back. This is Season 2 of Object Podcast. We have been gone for a little while, but we have some really exciting news to share with all of you today. But before we get into that, I figured we'd discuss a little bit about what Season 1 for the podcast was like and where we were all at towards the end of it. I can say for myself, and I think on behalf of all of us, we were super excited with how successful the podcast was in the first season, the reception that it got. I think each episode got on average upwards of like 1,000 listens. Our Twitter's going to hit 700 followers today. Really amazing numbers, and we were super happy that people enjoyed the podcast as much as we did. I began to feel towards the end of the first season a little burnt out, not because I wasn't enjoying the work. I always enjoy working on the podcast, but it was getting to the point where it wasn't completely sustainable. There's a lot of work that goes into running a podcast. We have to coordinate the guest, work out everyone's time zone because we're all across the globe, run the Twitter, do all the editing. How long does an average episode take you to edit, Maseta?
About 5 or 6 hours. But also to the time zone point, I nearly made a mistake today because the US went into daylight saving time last week, and the UK doesn't go into daylight savings till later, so all the time's slightly off.
Oh, really? It doesn't happen at the same time?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of behind-the-scenes work that goes into running the podcast, and we were definitely, at the very minimum, we were at capacity with how much content we could pump out. But as the interest for the podcast continued to grow, we want to grow the podcast with it and make more content and better content to give to you guys about it. And with our current setup, that wasn't possible, which is why our first announcement today, we have 3 big announcements. The first one is the stepping stone that enables new content, and the other 2 are new content that we have. But our first announcement today, Object Podcast officially has a Patreon. We are so excited about this. This is something that we have talked about before and wanted to do, but now we are in the perfect opportunity and spot to do it. And I'm really excited about the way that we've set up our Patreon. We'll go over a little bit and what kind of stuff we have on it, but if you want the real details, you should just go to the page. If you're listening live, you can find this in the announcements channel. If you're listening from home, this will, of course, be in the description of the episode.
We should add, there's no actual adult content. It's a misflag.
Oh my god, yeah, wait, let's explain that first.
You need to be 18 plus to view our Patreon right now.
Yeah, so we published the Patreon a couple hours ago, and we immediately got flagged for adult content. Which we can't manually fix ourselves. So when you go to the page, this will probably be fixed by the time, if you're listening from home, that you go to the page. But we're not 18 plus. All of our content is pretty much family friendly, so don't worry about that. But yeah, it's pretty funny. But like I was saying, the way that we've structured the Patreon is not that it removes content from anyone. Object Podcast is going to continue the exact same way that it has been before. The Patreon is what enables us to have new and more content, which leads into our second announcement, which is Object Clubhouse, a brand new game development podcast featuring a group of friends playing a new game every month and then discussing and arguing about it. This is a totally new podcast. It's completely separate from Object Podcast. It's going to be in the same feed as Object Podcast, so if you're already subscribed to us on Spotify and iTunes and all those platforms, which if you're not, you should be, you will get Object Clubhouse going right into there. This is not a Patreon exclusive. Everyone can listen to Object Clubhouse. However, if you are one of our patrons at a certain tier, you get to listen to Object Clubhouse being recorded live, and you get the opportunity to quote-unquote phone into the episode. You'll get to talk about the game that we're talking about with us. We will always announce the game that we're going to be talking about in the next month at the end of each episode, so you can play along with us and talk about what you thought about the game. Our first episode is going to be coming out very soon. I believe we're going to put a teaser for it at the end of this episode, Maseta.
The first episode is already on Patreon for Patreon backers only, and at some point we'll talk about what time we release that to the general feed.
Yeah, perfect. So if you back our Patreon, you'll get that episode right now. The first episode is about the game Skyrim, featuring myself, Jack, who's also known as Sandbox in the Game Maker community, Grace from the Game Maker community, Minty Python from the Game Maker community, and of course, Friendly Cosmonaut. And it was a really fun time. I listened to the edited episode for the first time a few days ago, and it's really funny. Part of the reason we decided to make this podcast is because when we were having our first meetings about Season 2, we were discussing a more concrete definition of what we want the podcast to be. We've asked for feedback throughout the process of Season 1, and there are people that want the podcast to be very technical and have amazing resources that you can listen and really learn stuff about things professionals use and what it's like to be a professional game developer and these kinds of things. But there's also people that just listen to the podcast because they find it entertaining and they find it funny and they just like listening to it. They enjoy the personalities on the show. In terms of where we sit on the fence about this, I'm always a fan of the entertaining episodes of the podcast, especially our last episode. If you haven't heard the unedited version of the Jupiter Hadley interview, it's on our website and you should listen to it. It is absolutely hilarious. It was one of my favorite recording sessions ever. But Meseta and Sebastian, I believe you guys think we do our best when we're providing really good interviews and content and information. And we've had fans that prefer both. So we figured that the best option, rather than to change the podcast to go in one specific direction or the other, was to create new forms of content that embrace both and keep the podcast in the middle. So Object Clubhouse is our new content on the side of the fence of entertainment. And our other announcement, our third announcement, which falls on the side of really technical, good information, is Object Blog, which is our brand new place to house articles about specific technicalities of systems that professional game developers use, what it's like to be in the daily life of a game developer. These articles will be written by ourselves as well as guest writers. We will have a minimum of one per month, but we're going to see how many we can get out per month. Object Blog is going to be hosted within our Patreon feed. So instead of just having updates about when we're recording and who's going to be our next guest, we wanted to make our Patreon feed more exciting than that. So we're going to have these articles posted directly in there. And it is only $1 on our Patreon to get access to Object Blog. We do not want to hide this content behind a ton of financial bars. Our goal at the end of the day is just to continue to make more awesome content for you, and the Patreon helps us enable that. It also helps us in hiring a producer to help us deal with all of these behind-the-scenes work. So Jack, or Sandbox as you may know him, is officially our new producer for Object Podcast, and he's going to be helping us out, and he did help us out a ton with the Patreon. He's going to be helping us with a lot of the behind-the-scenes work so we can start to create more and more content more regularly for you guys. I believe that sums up like the main details. If you want specifics about like our tiers and rewards, and if you're interested in stickers, you should definitely check out the Patreon because all the information is on there. But I think that covers like the main bulk of all of our announcements. Is there anything that you guys want to add?
Yeah, at some point we also need to hire an editor, so I have to spend so much time editing all of the podcasts.
Yes. We have goals listed out on the Patreon of the different things that we can do at each tier. And hiring a new editor is definitely one of them because poor Meseta has to edit all of our stuff right now. It's a lot of work. Yeah, so that's all of our announcements. We're so excited by it. And, yeah.
I want to hear Meseta. I want to hear what Meseta's been doing since the Season 1 post-hiatus. Bring everyone up to date.
Oh, wow.
That's right.
Yeah, that's such a long time ago.
Our last recording was right around before Christmas.
Yeah.
So we have all had a lot of exciting stuff happen since then. So yeah, Meseta, do you want to go first in sharing what you've been up to?
Yeah, okay. So I think the first thing I did after that was put together the GM Sentry. I'm really pleased with how that turned out. GM Sentry is an extension for GMS2 that links up Sentry.io. Because one thing I realized was GM doesn't really have any of these tools for error reporting that all of these other languages do.
Do you want to explain what Sentry.io is?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Yeah, Sentry.io is like an online tool for collecting error logs. So in other languages, you can integrate Sentry.io really easily. Anytime your website or your service errors out, it sends the error logs to Sentry.io, and then you have a single place you can look at where all of your bugs are coming from, what line it's on, what file it's on, which users are having the problem, and stuff like that. And GM doesn't have anything like that. Also, obviously, shout out to Yal, Yellow Afterlife, who created this amazing extension called Catch Error, which basically intercepts that error message that GameMaker produces when you hit a bug, and doesn't crash desktop your game. Yeah. So you can use these two tools, Yal's Catch Error and my GM Sentry, put them together, and for your production game, the game that you've built and is out of testing and you've shipped it out into the world, or for beta testing, anytime your game encounters a bug, instead of just crashing the desktop, it intercepts the error, sends it to Sentry.io, so you have the game dev, have a place to go to look at all of these issues happening in your game. And Lazy, I know that Forager uses Sentry.io, and I think you're one of the earliest and probably one of the bigger projects that use it.
It's been a lifesaver for sure. I'm able to every morning just log into my Sentry and see exactly what errors our users have been hitting and a whole bunch of information. I mean, it posts their stacks of exactly what scripts they were at, what lines they were at. It posts information about what OS they were on, all of these different things that basically I can read this error report and know instantly, okay, that's what this issue was. I can go fix it. I can mark it as resolved. Any future incoming reports won't go into my feed. The amazing thing is how easy it is to add. With Yao side defense with catch error, all you have to do is set up a couple functions at your initialization of the game, and then any error will be caught, and then it's up to you how you handle those. Which also lets us have our own error screens. Normally every GameMaker game is plagued to have the exact same error message, or we're all so familiar with it. But we have our own in-game drawn GUI. We have one of our character sprites playing. It's really cute. Because that's the thing, you can take this fatal error and just completely ignore it and then do whatever you want. And then we, let people opt in to send us the error report. So it's definitely been a huge help for us. The very first version, Beta 8.0 that we used it on, we were immediately able to identify a crash that we hadn't caught and hotfix it instantly. And without this, we would have had to wait for someone to actually be willing to go into our Discord, post about it, and then for us to try to figure it out. But with all those reports, we got it done right away. So it has been a huge help for us for sure.
Yeah, and that was really my aim, was these tools exist for web developers, for Python developers, and GM just doesn't have access to it because of the way error handling works. So it's really great to be able to bring some of those tools into the GM ecosystem. Mm-hmm. Which brings me on to the second thing I was working on, which I wrapped up recently, was a web-based GM debugging tool. So this was more of a proof of concept for me. I was really playing around with what things can we do to GM to make it talk to things it was never really designed to talk to. So the way GM debug works is I've hosted a online tool, which is sort of a user interface for GM debug, and an extension which you drag into your project. When you run your game with this extension enabled and then go to the website, or the browser, I should say, actually connects to your game that's running on your computer. It doesn't go through any servers. It actually does a direct connection from your browser to your game on your computer. So your data isn't going to anywhere on the internet. It's currently just looking at all the variables, all of your instances, all of your data structures. You can look at surfaces. I originally built it to just help me look at DS grids because GM doesn't have a nice DS grid print function. There are a few on the marketplace, but it shows you this grid. You can sort the grid, whatever. And so this is my demonstration of what can you do if you make GM talk to a web browser. And then the answer is you can build your user interface in JavaScript, HTML, CSS, which is amazing because, as everyone knows, building user interfaces in GameMaker is pretty difficult.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was an interesting project. I released that. It's free to use. Go check it out. And right now, working on some Twitch extension stuff, which I think I haven't announced anywhere.
Oh, really? I want to hear about that.
Yeah, I won't talk too much about it right now because we're sort of still looking into it. I'm working with Sam, Mash Arcade.
Okay.
And yeah, there could be some very interesting things happening on that front.
Are these extensions that will help people make more games that are playable through a Twitch chat? Is it that sort of an idea, or is it something else?
Yeah, basically that. It's okay. Going to be some way for GameMaker to interact with Twitch streams.
That's exciting.
And it involves a lot of back-end work. So I'm continuing my trend of building stuff for GM that isn't actually in GML, which has been quite an interesting experience.
Well, that ties into GM Cloud as well. Was that done before we took hiatus?
Actually I started about the same time, and that's still ongoing. It's a thing that I'm still building out, but obviously can't do everything at once. So GM Cloud is basically a cloud saving service for GameMaker games. So if you wanted to save your game and then go to a different machine and play the game, you can download your save game off the internet, and so you have your save game on any device that you play the game on. So it's a service for game makers to do that, and it's still in beta. It's, I guess, mostly working. The website doesn't look great. I need to spend some real time on building out that website. But I think there's some interest from you, Lazy, about using GM Cloud for what you're doing.
Yeah, so I'm always, anytime I see a tool or a system that looks that cool, I just want it in my project, which is why like the second Yao started talking about Catch Error, I was like, I need it. I don't care if it works. Like I just need it in my project because my interest in game development is working on systems. So seeing that kind of stuff is really exciting me for one to work on it. I definitely want to see if there's a place that I can find in Forager to add it in. I'm not sure if there is yet because it's weird since Forager is distributing on so many different platforms. There's a bunch of different distributions of it, but Steam has its own service for cloud syncing and that sort of stuff. So I don't know. I'm definitely always on the lookout for places I can add really cool big systems for Forager, and that's like one of the cool things that I can bring to Forager is a more, in terms of what we can do, what the game can do on a technical basis now, the sky's the limit versus where it was before I was on the project. So it's really exciting. There's a lot of room for these exciting kind of systems.
So yeah, I really hope to bring some of my experience in server-side systems to GM. I think I'll be continuing to do that as my main focus for the next few months.
That is very exciting.
All right. Well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Sebastian, you have a very exciting event coming up.
Yeah. So I've been working on a game called Duke of Defense for about 10 months now with my partner in crime, Topher. He's in the podcast right now.
Yay, Topher.
We are going to PAX East. It is not his first convention, but his first convention for game dev, and it is my first convention in general.
Wow.
And it's also a big deal because Topher and I have worked online, like that classic RevShare indie team, and we've never met in person. So we're landing within 30 minutes of each other. We're going to meet each other. We are sharing an Airbnb. We're going to the same booth. We're selling we're showing our game to people. We're meeting our publisher in person. It's a lot. It's actually really scary, but it's also exciting.
I was going to say, that is the most overwhelming thing I've heard. I'm so excited for you, but oh man, that's so many life milestones in one.
Yeah, it's like travel to Boston. All right, I've never been to the East Coast. That's terrifying. Meeting my partner I've talked over a year and a half. That's scary. Publisher. That's also scary. Selling my game to 10,000 plus people. Also scary.
Topher's also one of your closest friends, and I think just that
that alone would be overwhelming.
That's
Yeah,
what if you meet and you're these two really close friends online
and we hate each other,
and then you could hate each other, but it's just so awkward. You've never spoken in person. You're just kind of sitting there oh, this is the worst. Sorry, I'm not trying to fill you with dread and anxiety. I'm sure you two will be fine.
Thanks. Yeah, no, my heart started racing as you. So I was oh god.
Sam has a very important question in the chat.
Yes.
Are you guys going to shake hands or hug or kiss?
See, you gotta establish that first, right? Because
I actually spent a day thinking about this. I'm gonna walk up, I'm gonna hug him, but one hand over the right shoulder, left hand around maybe the waist. A little romantic, a little intimate, but definitely not crossing any intimacy lines.
See, if it was me, just because I'm a charismatic person, as is obvious by how much I don't shut up on this show, so I see it as my duty to break the awkwardness. So I would just pick Topher up and give him a big ol' hug.
Oh god, I heard that.
It's actually funny you say that. Topher is extremely short. I think he's 5'5" and I'm 6 feet tall. So we have, I could definitely pick him up.
Oh, we didn't know that.
Yeah,
I didn't know Topher. Oh.
Yeah, Topher's a little guy.
Should we edit this out of the podcast?
No, no, it's fine. But okay, so you're taking your game to PAX East, which is really exciting. Are you guys building or in charge of your booth, or is your publisher taking care of that for you?
So luckily, and to our astonishment, our publisher's actually done everything. They've done a really good job. I actually congratulated them this morning. They have pins. They have they're bringing the TVs. Ooh. They're bringing computers. They printed out these posters. They have other posters that have the control scheme for the demo on them. So we put it in game too, just in case. But it's they got 2 dimensions of it. That's exciting.
That's really great of them. So wait, you guys have merch?
Lazy's why don't we have merch?
I love merch.
Yeah, we have merch. We have everything. We're actually really exciting. We're right next to THQ Nordic, I think.
Oh
my
right.
God, are you serious?
You can ask them questions about that thing that happened.
Wait, that's so funny.
And 505 Games, I think, is next to us as well.
If you aren't familiar, THQ Nordic was in some hot water recently because they decided it was a good idea to host an AMA on 8chan, which if you don't know what 8chan is, it's just 4chan, but worse.
Oh wait,
no, it was on 8chan. It was on 8chan. It was even worse. It was on 8chan.
Like if it was on 4chan, it would probably be okay. But 8chan is
Nah, it wouldn't even be okay then.
No,
but, like,
all right.
It's just like insult to injury putting it on 8chan. I mean, like 4chan is known to just be like the worst place on the internet, and like 8chan were too bad for 4chan. It was so dumb. That's really awesome. You have to promise to ask them really awkward questions for me.
Maybe. You know, we're talking about the dread of that whole situation, and I almost didn't go. Like, I was like, okay, I can't afford to go. It's fine. Luckily, I don't have to deal with any of the social drama that's involved here. And then I could go. And then we like got tickets. And then I panicked. So I was like, oh, God, I have to meet all these people. And then I realized, like, oh, my God, there's other developers there. I have to talk to other people other than Topher.
I think you just got to, like, prepare yourself that it's going to be...
Yeah.
It's going to be exhausting. I mean, even just being inside of a convention it's such a social, energy draining kind of place, especially for a game developer where you're, you know, programming in your room for most of the day.
I like it.
Yeah. It's. I'm excited for you. It's gonna be really interesting. I can't wait to hear how it goes, man.
Yeah. Topher's a lot more social than I am, so hopefully I think he's gonna balance us out. I mean, you know, he's a social butterfly, which is fine. That means I can just stand behind him and nod, be a part of the hype crew.
You should wear just like a shirt that says "I'm the programmer." Talk to the other guy. So, what kind of stuff have you been adding to Duke of Defense?
Right.
In preparation for, like, what has the work been?
I should probably explain the game, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah.
So the game that Topher and I have been working on is called Duke of Defense. It's a tower defense game, but it's like an active tower defense. So you know you can run around on the screen. It's not like you don't like just click on stuff. Like you actually interact in the world. There's boss fights. There's a bunch of cutscenes, the whole storyline. So yeah, in preparation for PAX, we we play through the whole game to make sure sort out all the, you know, gameplay issues and bugs. You don't want to go to PAX and have your game crash on something really basic. So we fixed all that stuff. That took like a day or two. And then we made a PAX demo, and that took like 3 or 4 days.
What's a PAX demo?
You mean what is this one specifically or just in general?
Yeah, what is this one specifically? This
one specifically is a single level, and the important thing about it is that it's self-sustaining. Right. So it's kind of like an arcade machine, you know? Like we can walk away and you beat the level, it just says press A button to start. It just restarts the level.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah. And it supports 1 to 2 players with drop in, drop out, or I guess just drop in player 2, and if you quit and restart, then it's just 1 player. Mm-hmm. But that way too, you know, if someone else will sit down, you guys can experience the co-op version of the game as well. You know, midway through the match. Might be kind of weird, but as many people as you can show it to, you want to. So
yeah.
I think I just have a permanent fear in my heart of the idea of seeing someone. I've already experienced seeing someone run into a bug that was my fault on a Twitch stream, and that was awful. Because you just want to like fix it. You just want to split, like, you know, and you can't. I think I have a permanent just phobia in my heart of seeing someone run into a bug like in front of me. Oh, yeah. Have you seen Indie Game the movie?
No.
Remember when okay, so there's this scene where Phil Fish takes Fez, I guess it was to PAX, and it was not stable. Everyone kept running into this same like game blocking bug, and just seeing his outward reaction of trying to be like composed about it versus how you know he feels inside. It's a tough scene.
I do remember that scene. Yeah. We came prepared. Topher's going to be bringing a laptop so that we can immediately soothe our anxieties. So I will fix the bug on spot.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, that's exciting, man.
Thanks. Yeah. That aside, we've just been working on fleshing out the content for the game. We're about a week and a half or 2 from the full release of the game. At least for PC, which is exciting. And we have the Switch release right after that. I submitted it for Xbox, so we're kind of just finishing the game. That's where we're at. We're also feature creeping because it's kind of hard not to when you're making a base, like, you know, a simple genre like tower defense. Like what else do you add? So we're like, all right, it's a 6-hour story. Well, if that's all there is, that's not worth $15. No, people want, you know, they want a penny per hour. So we're adding a wave mode, and I think we're adding some versus modes probably, and that's fun. Backpedaling into the game's code is real exciting.
It's hard to stop adding new ideas to a game. We've been pretty much feature locked since we're close to release now, and it's really tough when either someone suggests a really good idea or we have really good ideas. Like, no, we have to wait. we're not going to break the game. We have to wait.
Yeah. There's anxiety around it, right? Because you don't want to. what you have now in your eyes is like, all right, we have the base game. Even if you do have a lot more, it's just like, it's not enough. If we just add a bit more, and you keep doing that, you keep adding just a bit more. And I think at a certain point it becomes like overcomplicated. Like people don't want that many features and content. There's a point where, you have 70 game modes and people like 3 of them.
Yeah.
It has to be, spread around in the right way. You can't clutter the experience.
Right, exactly.
It's about the pacing that features are introduced. Like nothing is more annoying to me. I had this experience with Smash because I just got a Switch recently, and that's a whole thing I could talk about. Oh my god, I love my Switch. But
his Martha is pretty strong. Yeah.
No. It's I got into Smash, and the menus in Smash are beautiful, but I was just lost. Like I was as lost in the Smash menus as I get in like Hollow Knight, and there's so much. There is so much that game has, and I feel like the pacing, and this isn't the fault of Smash, like I'm just a terrible gamer, but, you can have a ton of features, but it's about pacing them and, like, making sure you're not giving too much to the player at once, because they can only absorb so much at once. If you log into a game and you suddenly have 30 tooltips pop up about all the things you can do, like, my base reaction is just like, I just don't care. I'm turning this off. I'm never going to understand this.
I've definitely had that reaction before. Just nope.
Yeah, it's just being overwhelmed. I think that happens to me a lot. What's that game? Is it Astroneer? It's some like cute voxely kind of game. I think it was made in either Unity or Unreal, where you're playing as like a stranded astronaut on some planet. And I got through the main menus. I was super excited. Watched the intro cutscene. Like, this is awesome. And then the second I was like in the game and it was like showing me all the controls and like all the things I could do, it's like, overwhelmed. I'm out. Bye.
Yeah.
which that's partly just me sucking.
Well, different target audience. Some people want a really simple, like, I can drop in, understand this game off the bat, and
for sure,
that's why casual games exist.
Right. Well, and I love complicated games. One of my favorite games of all time is Crusader Kings 2, and Crusader Kings doesn't do a good job of this, so I don't know why it worked for me. But it's just about how gradually you introduced all this information to the player. Once the player starts to feel good and comfortable with the mechanics that they have available to them, that's a good time to introduce the next chapter of the game, the new skill that they unlock or the new buildings they can work with.
Yeah. I think a game that does this really well is Stardew Valley. I really like the progression in that game.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Like, it's actually quite a complex game. There's quite a lot of mechanics in there, but you unlock it very gradually.
And it's presented in such a, like, peaceful way. The whole premise of the start of the game, and the game doesn't really have a huge story, so this isn't like a massive spoiler, but you start the game and you inherit this farm, and you're transitioning from your monotonous life in a cubicle into living on a farm. And at first, like, all you have to do is, like, you have some seeds that you can plant, you can water them, you can run around. There's very little you can do. As the game progresses, you unlock all these more things to keep you entertained until by the end of the game you still feel that, like, sense of comfort and ease, but there's so much you can do. There's so much content for you there. The short answer is yes, more content is good, but how you introduce that to the player can have a big effect, because you can shoot yourself in the foot and have the opposite effect by having too much content all at once.
And on that, I actually want to explain the post-game stuff we're doing really quickly, because I think it's an interesting approach to it on that exact premise. Mm-hmm. So right now we have a wave mode, which is the normal game. Each level is about 6 waves. But the wave mode is going to be like 20 or 30 waves, and, like, just insane. Like, just, there's so much on. I actually don't know if the frame rate's going to keep up. Like, it might be a performance problem. It's been okay so far. But anyways, what we're doing is we're introducing it after you beat the game. There's a whole, like, end hub of the world where, we have all these extra game modes you can now play. But it's like that, so, you don't open the main menu and see, okay, wave mode versus adversary. Okay, whoa. Instead, you're just like, story mode. Okay. It's funny how just even, like, putting a button in a different menu can make the player feel such a different, like, learning curve just by moving a button.
Yeah, that stuff I haven't been exposed to before is, like, these tiny little decisions that can be made. I've been, like, learning so much in the past few months just about game design and little tiny game feel things, and, like, stuff I assumed is, like, one way, but, like, oh no, it's like this, and then the second you hear it, it's like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Game design is something I have so much respect for, and it's totally not my forte, but there's so much that goes into it. There's so much to learn there.
Gameplay programmers and systems programmers, very different skill sets.
Yeah, totally. I love it when game design becomes a really psychological kind of task is when you're really thinking about like the mind of the player. Like you're not just trying to think about what's a fun game or like how should I spread this level out or whatever, but like you're trying to purposefully like set a trail of breadcrumbs to make the player think or act a certain way or to get them to elicit some sort of feeling. Is really cool, I think. And that's, you know, just something that is universal to all art, is like trying to, you know, manipulate, might not be the right word, but trying to get the viewer or the listener or the player to feel a certain thing or to experience something very specific.
It's very similar to story writing.
Yeah, absolutely. Which, and all this stuff that I've been learning, I guess ties into what I've been doing for the past few months.
Yeah, tell us, Lazy.
Yeah, let's segue into that. I don't think you've announced what you were working on since the last podcast episode.
No, because I was in the like final talks and paperwork for it as we were recording the Jupiter Hadley episode, and then it became official like a day after, so I'd never announced it. For those of you that remember our episode where we interviewed Hopfrog, the developer of Forager, I am now working full-time on that game as its official programmer, which has been awesome. It's been an incredible experience, especially in the contrast to what was going on before. So for the 6 months or so before I got this job, I had a full-time job working as a programmer. And I won't get too much into it right now because I think I honestly want to write an object blog post about it at some point. I have to like figure out what I can say. I don't want to like, you know, I don't want to be dumb about it. But basically, the last job I had, I was infinitely grateful for because it enabled me to, you know, have my own apartment and work full-time as a game programmer at the age of 20, which is just an incredible blessing. So, you know, without any obstructions in the way of it, I was totally, incredibly thankful for it. But that said, the job was not good. And it was, you know, it was a pretty toxic working environment, and I was not paid very well at all. Like, not about, like, greed. Like, I was paid very, very low level. So, and I wanted to leave for a while, and I was looking for work for a long time during the process of working on that game. But, you know, it's not like this is I'm not in a position where there are a billion games for me to potentially be hired on. You know, I'm a new game maker developer. There aren't a lot of full-time gigs out there to be had. So I stuck with the job for a long time out of financial necessity. And I want to actually mention, for the sake of like shedding, I don't know, some light on networking, because it's not, these things don't just happen, right? There's a lot of work that goes into networking.
The people kind of networking, not the...
Yes, the people kind of networking. Not your kind of networking. Not the online networking. These things don't just happen. I think the worst part about trying to get a job in game development, I'm sure this is true for many other things as well, is that there's so many times... Seb, you were just telling me about one of them before we started. There are so many times when you think something's going to work out. Like, you are literally at the point where you're about to sign the final papers, and it's so exciting, and then for some reason it just doesn't happen. Yeah. And it's the worst. You come so close so often, and things just don't work out for whatever reason.
There's so many parties involved. I mean, it happens.
Yeah, it totally happens.
But especially in the game dev world where budgets, especially the indie scene in the game dev world where budgets are tight, hiring someone could be the life or death of your project. So sometimes people back out or readjust their agreement
and you have to just
roll with it,
train yourself not to get your hopes up. Like I have told myself, like, not only am I not going to get my hopes up, but I am not going to celebrate myself until I have a signed legal document for anything, because that, you know, I think the only thing that sucked more than internalizing myself that this thing wasn't going to happen was having to like go back to my parents and be like, actually it didn't work out, and you know, it's so disappointing. Yeah. Well, and the reason I bring that up is because, you know, I'm working with Hopfrog now. This actually wasn't the first time that I tried to get a job on Forager. In, I believe, October of 2018, Hop mentioned in the Game Maker server that he was looking to add some sort of Patreon and or Discord integration to his game. And I was just like, I can do that, sure. I can learn the APIs and build an extension. We can do this. And I was like talking with him, and it was like, he considered it, but then he ended up taking the game in a different direction that just didn't need that. It wasn't anything personal, of course, but I was like, damn it. Like, I really wanted to work on Forager. This was before we even had done the podcast. But then after the podcast, we kept in touch with each other every now and then. You know, he would reach out about the podcast once in a while. I would ask about Forager. And then in late November, I reached out to Hop because I remember he said on the podcast that Forager would be coming out in fall of 2018. And I noticed it wasn't out yet. So I just asked him, like, hey, how's it going? What's the status of the game? And he informed me that there were some delays for a variety of reasons, but one of the issues was the optimization of the game. The performance was really not great on the Nintendo Switch and PS4 and lower-end PCs, and they were trying to work with that. And I just said, like, oh, well, I love optimization. I could give that a shot. And to my surprise, he's like, I actually might take you up on that. And a few weeks later, after we went through the whole process of speaking with Humble Bundle and getting everything sorted, I had a temporary contract to basically go into all of Forager's code, look at it, profile it, figure out where it was slow and how I could improve it, and then like give this turnaround to Humble Bundle, like I can do this and get the FPS to this in this amount of hours, which is really scary because optimization doesn't work like that. You can't just say like, oh, they're using draw rectangle, they should just be using a sprite. This will give us 37 FPS. Like,
that's step one.
You can't, yeah, like you can't predict these kind of things. So I'm like writing this email. I'm like, I hopefully can do this and this.
Yeah. That's scary, making promises over contract time. So you're like, and you don't want to give them like 60 hours. You don't want to scare them and be like, oh my God, that's a lot of pay. I don't know. How about 20? Can you do it in 20? And you're like,
but that's the thing, because Topher can attest to this. Is I was trying to give like my number of hours, and I was like putting myself on way too little time to get this done because I was like afraid of like scaring them off. Because here's a tip, actually, and this is something I've learned: you will never be in a position negotiating a contract where you will offer your first proposition and they'll just walk away. That will never happen. No one's going to say like, everyone will always say, that's too much for me. Can you go lower or can we do this instead? Nobody hears your first offer is like, nope, bye. I mean, and if they do, like, you probably messed up so bad. But, you know, always give yourself what you need, because it would have been bad for all of us if I had given a quote that was too low and not enough time. But basically, I had, I believe it was a total in the end of 70 hours to largely rewrite a huge portion of Forager, which, while it was stressful because I was really excited about, like, you know, I was working with Humble Bundle, I was working on this huge game with a huge community, I'd never experienced this before, and I really wanted to do well. It was the most fun I've ever had programming because I literally just got paid to build really exciting systems. And if you want more specifics on those systems, I do have a very long, like 2,000 word tech blog written that's not out yet. And I shouldn't say more about it yet, but once Forager comes out, you can read all about it. But yeah, and that was really fun. And then, you know, I tried to do my best to, you know, have as big impact on the project with the hours I had as I could. And by the end of it, Hop offered me a full-time position to just continue working on the game. And that's what I've been doing. So now I'm just the programmer for Forager, and we have been going through our final beta versions of the game. We just released our last beta version that we will release a week ago before the release of the game. And it's been a really interesting experience. It's been very new, but I've really enjoyed it. It's been great.
Nice. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
The first steps into the game dev big boy world.
Yeah, it's overwhelming. Like, January was such a crazy year because coming into 2019, you know, I was really miserable about this job I had, and I was just like not, you know, like financially things were almost getting tricky. And then this all happened within the span of like a week, and it was overwhelming. Dealing with the imposter syndrome has been a really interesting journey because, you know, not only am I still in this position where I am a new programmer in general, but I'm suddenly working on a project that I didn't create at all. You know, normally, like, you can feel very stable about, you know, this is my project that I've built, and any recognition I get for it, I earn. But now it's like, if I get complimented about Forge, or if someone really enjoys the game and I'm like, oh yay, that's my game, like there's the voice in your head like, well, it's not your game, you didn't build this. You know, all the success and massive hype around Forager, like the Discord had, you know, 15,000 members when you joined it. So trying to like teach myself like consciously, like how can I work around this? Because I do deserve recognition, and I do have an identity in this process. And I need to learn what that is. And kind of where I've been landing recently is I don't design Forager. Hop is like the genius that is able to figure out like that philosophy kind of stuff of what makes the game so addicting and good and fun. My task is like to stand in front of that moving wagon and just clear the path for it to be possible. Like if Hop has an idea, it's like my task to be the technical expert, be like, okay, we can make this happen by doing this. And just to make sure that Forager gets to where it needs to be. And that's like an identity that I've kind of liked, and I'm trying to like stick with myself to internalize.
For what it's worth, I've been working professionally in some kind of engineering or software development for quite a few years, and I still get that imposter syndrome from time to time.
Absolutely.
It's just a case of constantly reminding yourself, actually, you have that experience.
Yeah, well, totally. It's been really good for me lately. If you're conscious of the fact that you're dealing with imposter syndrome and you're able to like step away and tell yourself that, it helps a lot. It was the same deal with me. I had a I don't want to call it a health scare because it didn't turn out to be anything bad, but I remember I told you about this, Sebastian. In the beginning of February, through a combination of work stress that I was placing upon myself and other stuff that was going on, I was like beginning to have the symptoms were like heart palpitations, which is like the worst thing in the world. For me, it felt like my heart very suddenly skipped a beat. Or do you know in like middle school when you have a crush and you suddenly see them walk in the room and your heart just like jumps, you're like, whoa, like that feeling? It was like I was having that feeling in my chest every like hour or so, and I had no idea what was causing it. And you never want something to be wrong with your heart.
Right. You need that one.
So I was really concerned, and I had like other like potentially heart-related symptoms going on. So I was really nervous and scared, and I went to the doctor a few times. I was getting all these tests done, and the first test came back saying that there might actually be an issue, so I had to get like an echocardiogram. It wasn't a fun month because the doctors were saying like, well, you might be fine. You might just have anxiety. You also might have heart failure. We're going to figure it out. So that sucked.
Contrasting outcomes.
Yeah, and I had, during this whole thing, like waiting for these results to come back, I had my first anxiety attack, which is just the worst thing. I very, 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 very nearly called 911 and went to the ER because I thought I was like having a heart attack. Luckily, I called my mom, who is just the best, and she very intelligently was able to calm me down. She's like, I know how you feel. It's going to be okay. I didn't sleep at all that night, which sucked, but I was okay.
That's good.
And yeah, well, and during like that, panic attack, I know that panic attacks can feel like, like heart attacks. And I was telling myself, like, you're just having an anxiety attack. But because I was going through this like medical thing, I'm like, what if it's not? What if you're dying? What if it's not? And as soon as I got back finally the test results that I was totally fine, and I just like was dealing with anxiety. Ever since then, I've been so much better because anytime I feel like I am starting to feel like panicky or like a panic attack, I'm able to tell myself like, I know you're feeling this, but it's just this and it's all in your head. And if you really focus, it can go away because there's nothing physically wrong with you. And that has made all the difference for me. And the reason I bring all of this up is because imposter syndrome has felt kind of similarly to me. Is that if I start feeling doubt about the work I'm doing or my ownership of it, I can tell myself like, it's easy to rationalize these thoughts to yourself, but you know that they're not actually true and you do have a part in this process. And
right.
Definitely like, I'm still feeling these same things now, but like it's not, I'm not internalizing it. It's not affecting me anymore, which is really great.
Can I add on this imposter syndrome? Because I think...
Oh my God, by all means.
I would love to throw in my, self-deprecating perspective on this. Topher and I suffer from this a lot. So in the past, this project we've been doing has gone maybe 6 months longer than we originally aimed for. So, finances are getting a lot tighter, and, we have a publisher, but like, it's not the deal where they just throw money in our laps if we need more time. We're self-funded, like we're afloat And that's, if we're not keeping ourselves afloat, that's it. Part of the imposter syndrome, like, you know, like you hear like, you earned $5? Wow, that's more than I've ever earned. You're a real indie dev. And you're like, no, that's like a loaf of bread, dude. That's not, I'm not making it. That's not making it. And even if you make $300 a month, that's not even a fourth of my rent. No, that's not making it. If you're making $1,000 a month, you're like, okay, I make a little more than nothing, but still not a minimum wage.
Yeah.
And so I feel like until you're making a whole lot of money, you're just always going to experience imposter syndrome. But especially lately, just like occurred to me there that I'm like, dude, you're going to PAX. Hello, like wake up. Like you're not a complete, right? I mean, I'm mostly a nobody, but you're not a complete nobody if you're going to PAX. Like that's pretty good.
Yeah.
You know, if I a year ago, not a year ago, I was still kind of feeling like this. Let's say 7 years ago, if someone told me like you're going to PAX at the end of this year, I would be mind blown. I'd be like, oh my, I must be the coolest guy in the world.
Well,
yeah.
It's go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say the solution to imposter syndrome is just to think about your achievements, think about the stuff that you've done, and just think about the effort and talent that is needed to get those done. Not everyone goes to PAX. Not everyone makes a game, even.
Right. Yeah. No, and see, like that's what I remind myself. But it's funny that the closer you get to your goals, the less of an impact they seem to have on you. It's hard because if you don't value your milestones as you reach them, like it doesn't. So like my last game I put out, I'm not going to plug the name.
Don't sing.
The last one I put out, we got to Switch and Xbox, and like at the moment, like I finished those, I was so burnt out on the work of porting them. It just didn't feel good to release them. And then the sales were just enough for us to survive. So it's still just, which, you know, in the grand scheme, like that's crazy, earning 3 or 4 months of living income off of a game.
Right.
That's a big deal. But to me, that was, no, I didn't hit 6 figures. I didn't, I don't have the next 3 years saved up for. So obviously I didn't really make it. This is just another step to survive. But now in hindsight, I look back, it has so much less value to me because of the way I looked at it then.
Yeah, this is Don't Sink, right? Like, plug it. I think you deserve this.
You plug your game.
I actually played it in my car yesterday on my Switch. I was not as disappointed this time. I was like, that's pretty good when you're locked in the car waiting for someone to come back from a doctor's appointment. Kind of a specific time to play this game, but you know.
You know, the interesting thing about imposter syndrome for me is that, and this might just be me, but I'm often really fearful of ending up on the opposite side of it. My biggest pet peeve, the thing I hate the most, is people with like a big ego about their accomplishments. Like it's easy to tell the things that bother you the most about yourself, because at least for me, they like irritate you endlessly when you see someone else do it. Like I saw a post on Twitter of someone just like so full of themselves, and I was just like so cynical in my head, like, you've done nothing, like shut the heck, like what do you like, nothing bothers me more. And I know that the reason it bothers me so much is because it's what like I fear in myself. Like I can see myself if I get too far for it. So it's like this scale you're trying to balance, like on like do I self-identify as this new programmer that doesn't really know what he's doing, or do I self-identify as a full-time programmer that is working on this massive game with a huge following? Where do I find the balance? So, you know, I think a lot of people, you know, are pretty safe to just try to talk themselves up because it's really easy to get down on yourself. But I mean, I have a lot of self-love in general, which is, you know, a huge blessing. But my fear with that then is that I can promote myself a little too much in my head.
I want to jump in on that, actually. Ironically, you're super on the dot about that. 3 or 4 years ago, I put out a game called Rock God, which, looking back, I'm not super proud of. But it's actually my top grossing game for PC. Not by a whole lot, but just is. And at the time, I was so egotistical. I was like, I'm just kind of like, it was actually back when I first joined this Game Maker Discord server that we're using for the podcast, and I was just so full of myself. And like I kind of like sold myself that. Like I talked to him on voice, and like, you made what? And I'm like, yeah, dude, it's kind of it's a pretty big game, but like, you know, it's whatever. And I was just so full of myself back. And it's weird because like now I'm doing better for myself. It's a polar opposite. I feel like it's kind of like it's like the idea that like people earn you can earn $1 billion and then money has no value to you. You just don't feel good about it. You know, like when you start at minimum wage and then you get promoted to assistant manager, that's such a big deal, and you're so prideful, and you're like, look at me, I'm a big shot, heck yeah. And then you're the actual manager, and then you're working as a regional director. But if you're the guy running the business, you're just like, I hate my job. This sucks. I don't need this. I can quit whenever, and no one cares. I can't relate to anybody. Not to say that's where I'm at. I'm not there. I'm very poor, but I just wanted to contrast.
I don't have the answer yet on what like the answer is and how to find that balance. Like I am proud of myself and I want to be able to express that pride, but I never want to come across to anyone as like
fool yourself,
unobtainable, full of myself. But I also don't want people to like see me on a different tier than them ever, be it like out of spite or out of genuine belief.
Oh right, you don't want someone to. Well, there's a line there though, isn't there? Because if you have 15 years of experience in something and someone has 1 year, they should look to you almost like a elder in a way, like in that particular field of knowledge. Like I go to Yellow Afterlife for tech stuff on Game Maker. He's my go-to because he's the genius that I go to. Like I do not compare to that man.
Well, for me, it's like the situation is that I'm still time-wise so new to it. Is that there are people that have been doing this much longer than me that haven't had the same luck that I have. And it's like my feeling is like, oh my God, if I was someone else, I would just hate me out of principle just because like it's not fair. And then again, like I have my third party voice in my head that's aware of it's imposter syndrome. It's like, no, you did specific things working really hard. And like, there's a reason, like this wasn't an accident. I don't know. I don't think it's really possible to perfectly balance, but it's definitely something that's regularly in my head.
Yeah, it's hard. When I get into situations like this, I tend to try to talk about the things that the things that I know. I try not to talk about how much experience I have. If I'm in an argument with someone about some technical thing that I know about, I never say, well, I try not to say, I've had X years of experience in this, you should listen to me. Right. I just try to explain, this is why I think I'm right.
Which is hard. Like, it's the most tempting thing in the world, especially like, for the most part, the Forager community is like the most wholesome, lovely, accepting, understand. Like, I could not ask for like a better group of people to be making games for. But with the nature of having a game as large as this, every now and then you're going to get people that, randomly DM you a bug report and are like angry. This morning someone sent me an image and I can't even tell looking at it what the issue is. There's clearly some bug going on though. And they just like, the caption was fix this period. And there's just like you in those situations or that doesn't bug me as much as when people assume they know how to fix the issue, but they aren't actually programmers.
Oh, okay.
There's someone who was, they're just trying to help, I'm sure. So nothing against them, but there's someone who had experience in Unity. So they posted a bug, and I was like, oh, that's really weird. I'll have to look into that. And they responded like, yeah, it's probably just your player class isn't referencing that prefab correctly. And I was like, okay, no, that's not how that works. But yeah, I definitely get what you mean. It's really hard to not sometimes just say, like, I know what I'm talking about. You're wrong. Please stop.
I think, actually, had a small epiphany. I think a part of the identity crisis that comes with that is actually a result of inconsistencies in, like, the people we surround ourselves with. And I say this because back when I first got into game dev, I had a lot of very positive people originally in my first game. And that's when I was really egotistical. And then that game I mentioned, Rock God, when that came out, it was kind of like 3/4 were like, this is the greatest thing I've ever touched on Steam. And then 1/4 was like, you should just stop. Just give up. You're terrible. You suck at your job. And that kind of like, it rocks your boat a little bit because then, it's like if you went to your mom one day, she hugs you, and the next day she slaps you and tells you to get out.
Sending me mixed messages here.
You're like, do people like me? Am I a bad person?
That's definitely a new experience for me because, I still have not released the game or anything. I haven't had a community at all, let alone a community large enough for there to just there's always going to be haters and people that just think you're awful. Like I said, the Forager community is great, but the Steam forums have been particularly bad at times, although it's been getting better recently.
That's actually the forums I was referring to where I got roasted and continue to see it.
Yeah, well, there's something about Steam, man.
It's so easy to yell at people, though, on there. It's easy to be like, your game sucks and you should feel bad. I have not sent a single message on there, and I'll probably keep it that way for a while, but it's really, like, you can read this message of someone that's just, like, trashing on you, saying you're a horrible person, or, like, giving you a death threat, and it's really easy to tell yourself, like, they're just a hater, whatever. That doesn't mean that, like, when you alt-tab back into GameMaker, you're not feeling kind of down about yourself. And I think it's not out of any personal sense of, like, I know what we're doing is awesome and I love it, but we're not just making it for us. And so, like, when you hear that other people aren't happy, even if there's
99 out of 100 voices saying they are happy, like that one voice is always like, oh, but why? I want to make them happy. And learning that you can't make everyone happy is a tough task.
This is the tough task of community managers.
Yeah.
Shout out to Ross.
Oh my God, yeah.
You have to have a shell,
yeah,
for sure.
And that's the thing. Like, I think I do have a pretty good shell in terms of, like, you can DM me like hateful words and insult me, and it's not gonna. I'll probably laugh at it just because I'll be like, "Wow, this is actually happening. That's funny." But you can let them not affect you what the words are saying, but the empathetical, charismatic person.
Exactly. Yeah.
And this is something I've talked with Jack about, our producer, and he's like ragging me before. It's like, you need to stop doing this. Is that like just when other people aren't happy or if they don't like me, I'm just sad about it. And I was like, I want you to like me. And you can't make everyone happy, which is tough. Yeah.
One thing I just want to, not this to kind of extend this topic very much. One thing I would try to do when this used to happen was I would try to be really human with people. And so I changed my name recently in Discord, but it used to be Seabass the Human. Right. I went by that for years because people would just roast. Like, there's such a disconnection. Like, it doesn't matter the game. It could be a 1-by-1 resolution game, and they think there's a team of 40 people.
Well, that's the problem with the internet.
And so they talk to you as if you're an entity, not a person.
People forget they're talking to a person when they're posting stuff. Someone the other day posted like a pretty negative thing, and they referred to us as like the company, like in their office. I'm like, no, it's just a couple of people working from home making a game because we want to. It's not like.
How big's the team size?
Yeah.
So I'm the only full-time like employee. So me and Hop are the only two that work full-time, and then we also have there's someone that does our music and someone does our art, and then there's someone that does. The game has one of the Patreon perks is you can have like your own in-game character kind of, and so we have someone that does that art. But it's only two people that are working full-time on the game every single day. Yeah. So it's not like some AAA establishment. And we're new to this. This is all of our first game. So yeah.
One of the things that I remember in my head like stood out so well to me. There was someone that claimed that the game we had put out that we were sexist and racist.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah.
This is like a year after it came out. I don't remember the full breakdown, but I know I reached out to it. I was like, hey, like, why do you feel this way? What was in the game that made you feel like this? And I think they never got back to me if I remember right. But like I usually do that with anyone that's like, this game sucks and I hate it. I go, all right, well, what would you do different? Why don't you tell me? Because like I actually am curious. And even at that point, that's where you shell. This goes for negative reviews too, and handling criticism is. Even if someone's hateful, I guarantee you there's something in there you can take away. Like, there's a bias, and he has bias because of this one thing. Okay.
Everyone has a reason for, like, feeling the way they do. So, this is interesting, because I recently had this conversation with my brother, and I think it's, like, really good advice. So, my brother and I didn't used to be very close. When he was in high school and I was in high school, like, we just weren't. We're opposites, so we were never very close. And it wasn't until I like moved out and we now live in the same town that we became really close. And now we hang out at least once a week and have dinner or play Switch. Yeah, it's great.
That's cool.
And we had like our first like legitimate argument for the first time in a while the other day, and it was really interesting to see how maturely we handled it now versus when we were kids. But the thing that I said that both of us need to recognize, because when we see the other one's getting annoyed, like we just want to get angry back. But nothing is more disarming in an argument, and this applies to like angry people on the internet. Nothing is more disarming than giving a ton of negative energy in angerment and getting nothing of it in return. Like if you are able to take someone's like anger and energy, like absorb it, and then and just like give back like totally genuine happiness, like. They're completely caught off guard. There was this story for any Game Grumps fans out there. One of the people on Game Grumps told a story where they accidentally pulled into a parking space that this other woman was trying to park in, and she like got out of the car. She's like, "What the hell, man? That's not cool. You can't do that. You get out of my face." And he's like, "Yeah, you're right. That was really rude of me. I'm very sorry." She's like, "Whatever, man. Just stop freaking out." He's like, "Yeah, you're right. I'm really freaking out right now. It's not okay." You don't. If you're angry, you can't continue yelling at someone that's giving you nothing in return. So I think that same philosophy applies to if someone's just like berating you online. Should be like, translate their message to like as if it was presented in a thoughtful, kind manner. Because you're right, there probably is always something of value to gain from it. Sometimes, and if you can take that away, you just.
I mean, there's just hatred, but even with hatred, you can. Every person that interacts with you could be a friend, Like, this could just be one person who had a really bad experience one time, and it's because you weren't there exactly with them to talk them down, or someone wasn't there, whatever it was, and then you just, hey, buddy, it's all right. It's going to be all right. And then they're like, oh, you're pretty cool. And you're like, yeah, because I'm also human. And then they're like, oh, all right.
Yeah, it's like those gifs of angry dogs, and you start petting them, and they're like, oh, I kind of like this. And they just calm down. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's that same concept. Ooh, so our producer nagged me to do so. Nagg's a mean word, but
that's his job.
Our Patreon is doing
I was gonna bring this up.
Fantastic already. The one we brought up earlier, we're at 52 per month, which means we hit our first goal.
Wow,
That's what's important.
It's a monthly exclusive Patreon Object Podcast episode.
Yeah, that's exciting.
But yeah, thank you guys so much. That's incredible. Already at 52, and we're still live, so that's awesome. Is there anything else we want to go over, or we're over an hour now? Do we want to wrap this one up?
I wanted to reiterate really quickly over the content that the Patreon has, but like really quickly, like 30 seconds. Here we go. The Patreon is cool because there's tech stuff. They have a Object Clubhouse, which is like
a new show.
I must say, kind of like a Let's Play, but from a game design perspective.
That's kind of a nice way to think about it.
They have Friendly Cosmonaut, so that's cool. The Patreon's like everything we want to do, but we can only do it if people are, supporting us. And we didn't do it season 1, obviously, because we were still growing. And now we have this chance, but like we need people to back us. And you guys are doing really good at supporting us so far. So thanks.
One of the cool things about the Clubhouse is that the cast can switch up. It's not like a dedicated cast, which is a cool way because in the past we've wanted to involve more people that are like, talented that we want to have on the show. But like with Object Podcast, the tough part is that we can only have an episode every so often, and we can only have one guest at a time. And there's so many awesome people that we want to be able to give a platform, whether it's to show off their stuff or just to like hang out with us and, be able to be in the public eye like this. So the Clubhouse is a really cool opportunity for us to do that. There's no strict guidelines on who's in the cast or who's going to show up. So you might get something different every single time.
Can I plug one more thing for us real fast?
Mm-hmm.
The $1 tier basically gives you, not basically, no, it does. It gives you all the Patreon content, minus like bonus features like getting stuff early and some other exciting stuff and merch related stuff. But like $1 gets you into all the Patreon content, all the blog stuff, which I find to be invaluable.
Yeah, the blog is really exciting to me. Yeah.
I mean, we don't want to have it too high of an amount. I am aware that a lot of our audience is still in school or don't have a stable income, being indies, and so I think that's a good amount. It helps us, and
yeah. We didn't want to block off too much stuff. We wanted to make it accessible. The goal was to add more content for everyone, not to like create premium stuff too much. So
and at the core of it, this podcast is meant to be for the community. That's the whole point. Like we're not trying to like line our pockets, or
we're not profiting. I'm not gonna buy any pizza with this money. Don't worry. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, cool. So should we close it up then?
Yeah, let's wrap it up.
All right. Thank you all for stopping by. Our art is by Baku and 13. Our music is by Grace. Our website was designed with the key help of Tony Stir. And our producer is Jack Sandbox Spira. And if you sign up to be a $10 patron or more, we will read your name right here at the end of the podcast. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Hey.
All right. Now I gotta pack all my stuff in like 20 minutes. Every podcast.
Thank you, everyone who showed up. This is crazy. I want to say that.
But Meseta and Sebastian, I believe, you guys kind of preferred or thought that we... Oh my god, I'm getting a phone call and I can't hear you.
Unprofessional.
Spam call. God, that's so annoying. Cut that out of the podcast. Oh my god, wait. This is a nightmare. I can't hang it up. There we go. And now my Spotify's playing. This is awful. Cut this out of the podcast. Okay, there we go. We're back. So like I was saying, I prefer the episodes of the podcast that are really entertaining and fun, but you two